Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to PSB, our first episode. I was going to say
Yeah.
podcast, but it's kind of episode of
First
our
video, I'll
yeah
say.
of our hit new talk show, where we'll be discussing all things Formula One with myself, Alex, and my partner Josh. I actually put it the right way. Hey, I
There you
did it.
go.
He's over
Lovely.
there.
I mean, considering you forgot your name first, but you was able to call me a partner straight away, it's an honour. It really is.
Yeah.
We share the commentary booth together, so we thought, why not share a YouTube channel together and really go on an adventure? And henceforth, here we are at PSB. Pit Stop Banter, and I'm awfully looking forward to this first topic because earlier today, or today as of recording this, probably tomorrow for you guys watching at home, we had some very dramatic news over the I would say the morning to do with a certain Mercedes AMG Petronas re-signing a pair of talented drivers.
Yeah, not just Lewis Hamilton, as we knew Lewis Hamilton was going to get a contract negotiation. There was a bit of rumours that he might end up in a red suit for next season, but those rumours quickly died down when it was found out he just wanted Mercedes. And not only has Lewis Hamilton signed on for another 2 years minimum, but George Russell also signs on for another 2 years, which I was a bit surprised at more than Lewis, because I didn't know George had little time left on his contract. I thought he was on like a big Charles Leclerc contract, but I guess it makes sense that he wasn't now. I guess his 3 years were up or whatever, and he's now got another 2 years. He's here with Lewis at least until 2025.
Yeah, I believe Russell might have had until the end of 2024, so he still has a year left on his contract, but it's better to just secure it and keep that, little year ahead to be able to buffer it. But as you can see on the graphic in front of you, we've got almost every single seat filled now, apart from 4. And that's Alex Albon's teammate, Valtteri Bottas's teammate, and the 2 AlphaTauri drivers. Now, Russell's been secured, Hamilton's been secured, but Logan Sargent, Zhou Guanyu, Yuki Tsunoda, and then whatever on earth is going on with that other seat, they're still up for debate, and I'm really struggling to comprehend that, Sargent would have only been given a year, and he's already getting moved out for perhaps a Frederick Vesti. I feel like that's very harsh. I feel like Logan's got a lot more room to grow.
Yeah.
And Guan Yu Zhou's done an absolutely stellar job, if not better than Bottas, and it seems like he's just getting dropped out of nowhere. And I'm not one to sit there lightly and think that's a good idea in the slightest.
No, I think the thing with Logan is, again, he's had, obviously we lost Nick de Vries early on in the season when he was unceremoniously dropped from AlphaTauri in
Dropped or thrown.
Dropped or thrown out of Red Bull, but apparently he's still on their books. Did you he was one of the drivers they were going to bring back to drive for Daniel.
Why would he?
Obviously Lawson was there anyway, but apparently he's still part of the Red Bull family. But Helmut Marko instantly came out afterwards and said, no, that's not going to happen. So who knows what's going on, really. But yeah, so the Logan's an interesting one because I think his best weekend was the Dutch Grand Prix by a long,
yes.
by a big margin.
I mean, he had a great showing in Bahrain. He was really close to Alex, but I feel like he's grown more distant away from the car. And I felt like Zandvoort was a turning point for him where he's been able to really anchor down and get a bit of momentum going. So I'm really looking forward to see what he's going to be able to do around Monza this weekend. But
I think that Williams is going to be quick this weekend.
Regardless of what he does, he's got to get points before the end of the season if he wants to keep his seat against the likes of Frederick Vesti. And I've not even mentioned Mick Schumacher, who's also in contention for that seat. He did a test drive here about a month ago at this point.
Yeah, I think Toto really wants him on the grid again next year, which I think would be a shame for Logan. Obviously, it's a shame that Mick was really unceremoniously booted out of Formula One at the end of the 2022 season.
That's Gunther Steiner for you, isn't it?
It is, at the end of the day.
There's a reason Jaguar didn't succeed with the amount of money they had, and there's a reason Haas isn't succeeding despite, numerous efforts. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those.
Yeah, so obviously Logan seat is probably the most one at peril. Zhou is an interesting one because we went into the season thinking that Zhou would be safe for next year by the looks of it, but now rumours came out after Belgium that during the summer break and as we went into Zandvoort that seat isn't as secure as we think it is, because I think there's a certain French driver waiting in the wings for an opportunity at that seat, and I can't say Teo doesn't deserve it, but I can't see why Zhou deserves to be dropped for him.
Exactly. If anyone should be dropped from that team, it's clearly got to be Bottas. Zhou's put so much effort in getting up to speed with Bottas to the point where he's more than likely able to consistently beat him, if not challenge him. And although Theo can win the championship this weekend, which might be the trigger Alfa Romeo is waiting for to put him into a seat, by no means does Zhou deserve to lose out a seat for it. And if he does end up losing out a seat, not only will he be, challenging the likes of Logan Sargent and Frederick Vesti, who's currently P2 and F2, and Mick Schumacher for that Williams seat, but I reckon he could also perhaps go into the Red Bull family and start making a little name for himself there, because it is a lot of investment he brings over. Let's not forget, Alex Albon was put in that AlphaTauri seat and managed to gather so many sponsors because of his relationship to Thailand. I feel like Grosjean, you can do a very similar thing for China.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's a big market for him.
Same as Logan. It's a huge market because of the nationalities.
The only thing I find with Logan is I'll give you a counterpoint on that. Yes, it's like, so I think Zhou is great for China. I think obviously having the first Chinese driver. Obviously they haven't had the Chinese Grand Prix for a while, which I'd love to see Zhou actually drive that track at some point. But I think also the thing with Bottas is it's like a trigger. If Bottas retires, then that changes everything as well. But going back to Logan, I don't think Logan gives as much exposure to America as people think, because when we go to Vegas this year, people are going to be looking at Lewis and they're going to be looking at Daniel Ricciardo if he's racing. Logan hasn't won anything at a Formula 1 level, and he hasn't scored points at a Formula 1 level. Yes, he's an American driver, but Americans like winners in sport. So I don't see Logan as that big sort of jumping on point. Like, did Scott Speed expand F1 into America?
To a point, I will say yes, but of course, external events happened which cost F1. I feel like if Logan Sargent stays with F1 long enough,
I think so, yeah.
He'll definitely become a household name towards the racing fans in America. More so than you would see a Pierre Gasly or a Ocon, or, one of those midfield drivers.
Their country, which is sort of the thing. But it's... Sorry, carry on.
There's an opportunity there, and I feel like... Firstly, I think Haas have missed the ball. If I was Haas, I would have dropped one of their drivers in a heartbeat to get Logan Sargent. Yes, he's a rookie. Yes, he'll make costly mistakes. But their drivers at the minute aren't in a position to take that car anywhere near the points.
Well, like Hulk is the only one getting close.
Realistically, I reckon Haas just need to sit there and understand and explain to Gene that the car's not getting better. They've got to wait until 2026 and hope that General Motors is going to come and give them an engine, and they're still going to be able to steal a couple pieces off Ferrari here and there, because at the minute they're a Ferrari B team, and it's
if that.
I'd say it's a B minus team without having Ferrari talent in one of the seats, which is just a huge loss. And I think
that'd be so much better for Haas if they just became Ferrari's second team, like AlphaTauri is to Red Bull.
I mean, you can look at it this way, right? Williams have been acting as a second team to Mercedes, no matter how much they disagree. They somewhat have been, right? And then you look at the teams like Alpine, Aston Martin, McLaren. I mean, even Sauber to an extent, right? All of them have got big financial backers, and then you've got Haas, who don't want to be a B team.
But they're just. But it doesn't make any sense.
They need to be. Haas could have took on a Charles Leclerc, but he did a test drive for him. He was in their garage for a lot of the seasons, but he ended up going to Alfa Romeo Sauber because Haas didn't want him, and I find that so breathtakingly dumb. I hate it.
That 2018 Haas car was actually genuinely quite fast. So it was definitely the top of the midfield battle in terms of it was just below Red Bull, and then it was obviously below Ferrari and Mercedes. So if Charles was in that car instead of Grosjean or K-Mag, they would have done so much better. But
Yes.
but has just have a reliant on, oh, let's just stay the same and not improve. And the year that Mick and K-Mag were together, the car got better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know Mick made costly errors, which is one of the reasons why he was dropped from the team. But K-Mag's no saint. He makes stupid mistakes. He's getting older as well. I don't mind the fact that Hulk's in there because he gives you experience, but at least give a young driver an opportunity. So I don't
Yes.
see the point of putting them on for 2 more years, but another year or whatever. But I think the real there's a couple of trigger points that can happen across the grid, really, because obviously we still haven't talked about the AlphaTauri situation.
No. I
Who's going
mean,
to get those 2 seats? But
no one.
I think Bottas retiring, which is still a rumor, could happen. I don't know where he'd announce it, but depending on where he announces it, that could really change Alfa Romeo's plans. Because I think at that point, just put Zhou and Teo in the seats together, because Zhou will have 3 years of experience in F1, and Teo clearly has the talent to be a Formula One driver. We've seen it across multiple times, and I think it really depends on what Ferrari do with Sainz as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of rumours. Obviously, I'm a Ferrari fan at heart. I know you guys probably can't tell, but I'm a huge Ferrari fan. And there's been a lot of rumours over the break that he's going to be heading to Audi when Audi come in. And in the most selfless way possible, I'm happy for him that he's going and getting the opportunity he deserves to go and become a #1 driver elsewhere, because he's a very talented driver who's had very tough teammate pairings throughout the course of his career, and he stood toe-to-toe with them when it was equal playing fields. Obviously, you had Verstappen and the Carlos Sainz Sr. and Jos having arguments, which rumour has it potentially pushed his development of his Toro Rosso at the time behind Max's. Hence the reason why Max was able to perform better.
Yeah, but Carlos beat him 9 times out of 10.
Yes, until it got towards the end of his time together with Max, which where the rumours really came from. Then you also have the teammate with, I believe it was Hulk.
Yeah, Renault.
In Renault.
It wasn't a good time for Sainz.
No, but then he goes from that into the McLaren.
Yeah.
With a rookie Lando Norris, who has shown himself now that it wasn't just a couple of good seasons. He's a developed talent. He deserves a place on the F1 grid, and he's probably one of the best talents we've got on the F1 grid.
Yeah.
And he was able to hold his own and beat him there for 2 seasons before ducking and going probably to the hardest challenge you could possibly do to Ferrari against Ferrari's boy, Charles Leclerc. And to be quite honest with you, the gap's not been as big as a Ferrari fan and a Leclerc fan, not as big as I would have wanted.
He beat him in 21. Over a whole season, he did beat him in terms of stats-wise. Obviously, 2022 was different because Charles had a car that he could challenge for the title. Well, for about 8 race weekends, he could challenge for the title.
But then, it really gets me thinking, right?
Yeah.
If Sainz ends up going over to Alfa Romeo in a couple, maybe 1 or 2 seasons' time before Audi properly join, so he can get a foothold in and start understanding what's going on, who on earth would take that seat?
At Ferrari?
Yes.
Albon. I still think that Albon is #1 runner for that Ferrari second seat. Who else are they going to put in there? They're not going to put a rookie in.
No. They're not going to put a rookie in.
I don't see anyone else on the grid taking the slot. Unless you think they're going to put Checo in that Ferrari seat.
I can see 2 drivers that would put in that seat. One of them's my head. No, neither of them on the grid at the minute.
Okay.
So the first one, which would make sense for my heart, would be Mick. Despite him being chucked into a bus by Ferrari, we know what Ferrari's like. They'll very easily go back on a decision and ignore it.
Well, they want publicity as well.
Exactly, and having a Schumacher and a Ferrari, there's no bigger publicity in the world of motorsport. The other option, which I can see being more likely, isn't a fun one. It's not going to be a Lewis Hamilton. It's not a Max Verstappen.
Is it Pastor Maldonado?
I wish it was. It's Teo Porcher.
Yeah,
can wholeheartedly see them asking Audi for a swap, because by that point, Porsche is still going to be a Sauber driver. He wouldn't have had a contract with Audi.
No.
He'll still be a Sauber driver to go and race in, the LMP categories for Sauber.
Yeah.
But will he have a home in that Audi team? If they're going to bring on, a Sainz and maybe a Mick Schumacher or a rumoured Sebastian Vettel return, which has come from nowhere, to have a German driver in the team.
That's, I think, what they want, but I don't know if
it's not happening. It's not happening in the slightest at all. Seb's happy. And...
Well, we said that about Michael, and Michael came back.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Michael was already back in a car after he retired by this point.
Well, he almost came back in 2009 when Massa had his accident.
Yeah.
But he couldn't get super license points.
It wasn't that.
Expire, apparently.
It wasn't that. That was before the super license was even a thing.
Oh.
Max caused the super license to be in effect.
Oh yeah, because he was about. They put a 15-year-old in a Formula 1 car.
Yeah, it's because he had the crash on the motorbike.
Oh yeah,
he didn't feel up to it, which. I mean, that's part of my childhood. I remember. It makes me sad.
To be fair, he wouldn't have wanted to drive that 2009 Ferrari car.
I think he would have still given Kimi a pretty good shot.
Well, it would have been before Belgium, so he might have actually been able to win.
Yeah. Right. We're not dwelling on this. We need to move on. We need to move on.
Right. Back to AlphaTauri, because this is the next thing we still discuss.
Yuki Tsunoda's keeping his seat, and Liam Lawson's getting that seat. Perez is going to get kicked out of Red Bull. Not for 2024. For 2025, Perez is out. Ricciardo's in that seat.
So Ricciardo sits out for a season and then gets his seat.
Yes.
Oh.
On the basis that Red Bull are going to put way too much faith in Perez. Perez won't deliver, and they might even pull a half-season switch if it's that close between them and the looks like McLaren and Mercedes to be able to challenge them.
And maybe Aston, depending on if they can keep this challenge up. But apparently they're developing their car till the end of the year.
Yes, I'm a bit worried.
I was seeing today, so I don't know if they're really banking on getting higher in the championship. I think because there's still rumours that there's teams broken the budget cap for this year. So if Aston, if Aston have broken their budget cap, then maybe they're trying to get some money towards the end of the year, or maybe they think they need enough points because there is rumours that they can remove points from your championship totals, depending on that. But again, that's another topic for another day. I think AlphaTauri wise, I think Yuki does keep that seat, even though it's not secured on the grid apparently. But Lawson, depending on how he performs while Daniel's away, should keep the AlphaTauri seat. I think until the end of the season, and then should stay. I think they should keep Lawson in that seat until the end of the year, and then, depending on how next year goes, I don't see why you'd keep Checo in that seat for 24 if you're just planning to get rid of him for 25. Because surely you want to get someone in there for Max to. Because they're not going to promote Yuki to Red Bull. That bridge is not going to happen because Yuki's going to go to the Aston Martins in 2026 when Honda comes back.
Yes.
And they won't put Lawson in there unless they want to ruin another young talent. And the only person I can see putting in there is Daniel.
But to be quite honest with you, we know how dominant this Red Bull is, and I feel like they're just going to put way too much faith into Perez to be able to rebound and carry some sort of momentum. But he's just not that driver, and it really makes me consider.
Well, not anymore.
I don't think he ever was.
Maybe his Sauber days.
No, I don't even think then. I think the one race he had where he deserved, to not get the pay driver tag was from Malaysia, back in the Sauber. But every race after that, they call him a wet weather maestro. Look at Hockenheim. He was the first one to bin it into a concrete wall because he just went on the throttle too early. It was silly, stupid mistakes. Call him a tyre whisperer. He's took 8 years churning his tyres and never been able to make his tyres last longer than his teammate.
Yeah.
And he has one good performance and he gets the tyre whisperer charm. The Minister of Defence, how many times has he just crashed into people in his Sauber days? I mean, even in his McLaren days, he was fucking horrendous. And I can swear here, so I will swear. Yeah. He was absolutely dreadful.
That McLaren stint was a terrible idea from him.
I feel like half his career, he went from being a Ferrari junior, Ferrari didn't want him, Ferrari got rid of him, to being a pay driver, just grabbing a bunch of sponsorships, and somehow he was able to fluke himself into what could have been the second best car of the year in that Racing Point, but him and Stroll weren't able to get the results from it, and I would have loved to have seen, Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen, a proven race winner in that car, to really see what that car could do, because Perez by no means is a race winner.
And Stroll's not either.
Stroll's not a race winner. He has no motivation, and I feel like Perez is in a very similar boat to Stroll at the minute, where neither of them have the motivation to do anything. Perez knows his career's finished. He knows he's never going to compete for a world title, and at the minute he's just loving having the fastest car and disappointing his fans, because that's all I see him doing. It might be harsh, but that's my opinion.
It's one of those things where in 21, would it have been better just to keep Albon in that second seat? Because
Without question.
Albon, by the time we got to the end of 2020, Albon was getting closer to Max, because in Abu Dhabi he did get very close to challenging the Mercedes on towards the end of the race, because basically in that Abu Dhabi race he basically saved his tyres for too long, and then everyone else had used theirs, and when he started pushing, he was faster than the Mercs. I know the Mercs weren't very quick that day, but arguably it should have been a Red Bull 1-2, but Red Bull decided to not stick with him and put Checo, who had just won the Sakhir Grand Prix. And
which, by the way, what a fluke.
Yeah.
I've got to say, it's outrageous.
Yeah. He did technically overtake Albon, but Albon was... I think the thing is, if Albon had gone on that summer break and revived his confidence, which was clearly shattered by the end of 2020, because he was just so... He just felt so robbed of anything. But again, you look through those moments of the season where, in Azerbaijan, if Albon's on the front row instead of Checo, does Albon still go on to win that race? And it's the same, if Albon's asked, can he hold up Hamilton? Does Albon do exactly what Perez did? I know it didn't affect anything in the end, but it's one of those things where I know Checo isn't the best in terms of everything, but in certain moments when he's asked to do something, he does it well. I just don't think Albon, as a person who likes Albon, I don't think he would have had the bottle to do what Perez did.
Watching
at that season,
I could tell right now from the F2 Championship Leclerc won, where he was racing with Albon. In the sprint race, I want to say it was it was the feature race, because it was the very last race. Leclerc goes for an overtake in Abu Dhabi, and Albon's in the lead, defending. If it finishes the way it is, Albon wins the title. I'm fairly confident I've shown you this. Albon pushes Leclerc off the track entirely down the main straight to try and defend. I think if Albon was in that situation Perez was in, I don't think Hamilton is finishing that race. I genuinely think Albon would have very willingly maybe nudged Hamilton to ensure Max wins a title, and I feel like that's something that Perez wouldn't be able to comprehend. And by no means do I mean this is a slight on Alex Albon. I'm just saying that I think Alex Albon is not only a more talented driver, he's more consciously aware, and I feel like he's also a better team player rather than just being a teammate.
Yeah, I think now his time at Williams has shown that he can be that person.
And he can be a great leader as well, which is what we've seen.
And I think he's proven that in Red Bull, in that first season at Red Bull, he's a brilliant overtaker. Like his drive in Belgium, the first race he drove from the back of the grid up to 5th, got past Perez as well on the grass, got past him. And then a lot of races, maybe he wasn't up to speed, but again, he was just promoted too early. If I was Red Bull that season, what I would have done is, I know we're getting off topic, but I'll quickly go through it. I would have taken Gasly out of the Red Bull seat, put him alongside Albon in Toro Rosso, and put Daniel Kvyat next to Max, because he was off next season anyway. He was not going to stick around. So let Albon and Gasly duel it out in the Toro Rosso seat. The winner of that season gets Red Bull for next year. That's what I would have done.
I feel like that's a bad take and a half, but I believe we have wrapped up this contract talk.
Yeah, sorry,
yeah.
We talked about Hamilton. And
I'll tell you what, leave a comment below if you want to hear us talk about what Red Bull should have done on that fateful season with the drivers, because I've got a couple of interesting ideas, and we disagree with Alex, so we're going to have a lovely argument.
Does it involve
No.
Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull seat?
like I said, leave a comment below if you want to hear a bit more about that, but it could have something to do with that, but I feel like your idea is terrible. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we'll be able to find out very soon whether other drivers are going to be able to get their contracts sorted and confirmed, and we won't be left in the dark much longer. But until then, I've been Josh, that's been Alex, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one.